Hello everyone, this is Vikash Srivastava. Welcome to this session on Introduction to Python. So in this session, we'll talk about a basic introduction of Python. What is Python and why is it popular? And then we'll talk about how to install Python. And then we'll dive into various IDEs, which is an acronym for Integrated Development Environment. And we'll go through various IDEs which can be used to write and develop Python codes. And then we'll dive into a specific IDE known as Jupyter Notebook environment. We'll see what it is. And then finally, we'll dive into Google Colaboratory. Okay. So Python is currently the most famous programming language, which lets you work quickly and integrate systems more effectively. Okay, Python is currently the choice of millions of developers and machine learning and data science practitioners throughout the world. Python has the largest open source community, and lots of researchers and people are building packages and library in Python on daily basis. Whatever new research which is coming up, people are putting them in packages and libraries, and that's why Python is growing day by day. So it has very large support of open source community users. Whatever problem which you can face while writing Python codes, you can easily Google them up and you'll definitely get solutions to those questions. So it has a very active user base, right? And this Python language is very intuitive, relatively easy to learn. It's bereft of any advanced syntax or complex syntax, and that's why it's very easy to follow. So that's why Python is currently the topmost programming language in of our generation. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can install Python. So we can install Python from here, which is Python 3.8.6. This is the version of Python, but will not install Python through this python.org. Will download Python through Anaconda. So why Anaconda? So Anaconda is a platform, in fact, a distribution platform, which consists of a huge variety of frameworks for helping data science and machine learning practitioners. Okay, so in when you install Python using Anaconda, so that particular version will have a lot of inbuilt libraries, pre-installed libraries, in fact, which will help you immensely in your data science work. So how we can install Python with Anaconda? So go to products and then go to individual edition in open source distribution. Okay. So here you can click on the download button. So various type of installers are available. So if you're working on a Windows system, depending upon what's your machine configuration is, you can choose either 64-bit or 32-bit. If you're working on Mac, then you can pick these two out of these two, anyone. Okay. And then if you're working on Linux, you can either pick any of these two. Okay. So because I'm currently working on a Windows system and my system is 64-bit, so I'll go ahead and install this particular file. So this takes a bit long because this is a relatively huge file, almost half a GB. Okay, but because I already have Anaconda installed, so let us go through what Anaconda has to offer. Okay, so first, there are a lot of IDEs which are supported in Anaconda. So one is your Spyder, another we can use the Anaconda prompt. There is also a famous Jupyter Notebook where we'll be doing all the Python coding and stuff. Okay, so first let us have a quick walkthrough the Spyder environment. So basically I can search Spyder and I can open this. So this takes a little while to open up. So so we have Spyder open now. So we can do a lot of things here. We can write our codes here. Okay, and there are a lot of options. There is a run option. Okay, then there is run current cell. Okay, a lot of menu options are available as well. File, edit, search, source. There's run. There's also an option to debug. There's also console. Okay, then you can create projects which are really useful, and then there's tools, view, help, etc. Okay, so just write, let us just go ahead and write a simple code. So suppose if I am writing a particular variable called name, and I'm storing this particular value called John. Okay, so and I want to print this name. Okay, so I'll use the print statement, and I can run this particular command, and this gives me John. I can do the same set of activity in our console as well. So I can write name is equal to John, right? And then I can print what name contains. So name contains John. Okay, so we can write our Python codes here. We can experiment our codes here, and whatever codes which we are trying to run will get the outputs here only. Okay, so there is also variable explorer. So this will contain all the set of variables which we have defined in our environment. So currently we have only defined the name variable, so we can only see name. And what is the type of this variable? This is a string, that's why str, and the value which it contains, it's John. Okay, then there is file explorer as well, so we can explore files, and there is again help option. So a lot of functionalities are available in the Spyder environment. This is very intuitive. Okay, so and very popular as well. And but will not go ahead and use Spyder environment because we will be using Jupyter Notebook environment. It has a lot of extra and additional functionalities which we'll discover in a little while. But next, let us go through the another environment, which is your Anaconda prompt. Okay, so I'll just type Anaconda prompt here, and let us just open this. Okay, so here also we can open our Python. So what you need to do, just write Python here. Okay, and we are into Python now, so we can run the same set of codes or statements. So I am creating a variable name and assigning this value John. Okay, and I can print what name contains. So name contains John. So I can do this exact same things here, but because Spyder is more intuitive, we can do a lot of extra stuff here. Okay, but we cannot do those here, right? So you can write very basic codes here just to check some stuff out. But of course, this is not so useful, right? Using the Anaconda prompt is not that useful. Okay. So now we have exited the Python environment. So there's another ID which I have been talking about, which is your Jupyter Notebook. So how we can launch a Jupyter Notebook? So we need to just write Jupyter Notebook here. So Jupyter and then notebook. Okay. So and just we need to press enter. So this will open our Jupyter Notebook. But as opposed to Spyder, which opened in a particular application, when we launched Jupyter Notebook, it opened in our Chrome browser, right? So this works on localhost, which is your machine. Okay, and Jupyter works in a relatively different environment as opposed to Spyder. Okay, so let us see how we can write codes and do other stuff on in Jupyter. Okay, so there is an option to create a new file. So let us click on Python 3. We want to create a Python 3 Jupyter notebook, right? So this will open something like this. Okay, so this is where it's displayed Jupyter. Then there is untitled because we have not yet named our file. Okay, and there's a lot of different options as well. File menu is there, then edit menu, view menu, insert, cell, kernel, widgets, help. Okay, so we'll go through them one by one. So first, let us go ahead and rename our file. So I'll just name it testing Jupyter. Okay. So this already exists. So I'll just go ahead and mention something testing Jupyter new. Okay. So so in Jupyter, you have two type of modes which are available. One is your command mode and another is your edit mode. So in command, whenever you are in command mode, you will see that a particular cell is highlighted in blue, but when you are in edit mode, this will be highlighted in green. So when you are in command mode, you cannot write anything. Okay, you cannot write anything, but when you are in edit mode, you can write your stuff. Okay, so whatever code which you want to. So this is what we call as a cell block or a cell in Jupyter. Okay, we can create as many cells as we want to. So if you want to add a new cell, so just go to cell, just go to insert and insert cell below. So it will create another cell. Okay, so we can do the same sort of thing which we did in Spyder and in our prompt. So I'll write name as John. Okay, and I will run this particular cell. So how do I run it? So I'll click on this run button. So this will run a particular cell. Okay, and then I can see what value does this name variable contain. So I again run this. Okay, so this variable contains the value John. There's another way to run a particular cell. So how we can do that? So you need to press shift plus enter. So when I do shift plus enter, I don't need to use the run button, but I can use a quick keyboard shortcut, which will be using often, and this is very useful actually, right? So you just press shift enter, and then you can run a particular cell. Okay, so the name contains John. Remember, we can notice few things here. So whenever I run a particular cell, it displays a number here, and there is IN, which is a short form for inline. Okay, so this was the first cell which I ran. Okay, so that's why there is number 1, there is number 2, there is number 4. So there is no particular sequence. Whenever I run a particular cell, the number in which it was run, that will be displayed here. So let's say if I run this particular cell again, so this will be 5. So there is no particular sequence which is being followed here, which is pretty nice. So whenever we want to run a particular cell, we can go ahead in that particular cell and press shift plus enter to run that particular cell. Okay, so this is what a code cell looks like. But in Jupyter, we have a lot more functionality. So you can see that this particular cell is mentioned as a code cell. But there is also another option to convert this into a markdown. So what is markdown? So let us see in this particular cell. So I can convert this cell into a markdown. So what is a markdown? So you can notice some things here. This inline has vanished here. Okay. So markdowns are often used to write text, insert images or videos or any multimedia object. So let us just first write some text in this markdown. So I can write hashtag and then I can write something like this is my first Jupyter Notebook. Okay. And how do I run this cell? The same thing. You need to press shift plus enter to run this particular cell, and this displays the text. Okay. So here we can appreciate the functionality and the usage of Jupyter Notebook. We can not only run the code cells, but we can also have markdown cells, which are very useful for writing your text, so that you can elucidate what processes and what things you are doing. So this looks like a blog post as well. This can look like, right? So you can have a lot of text, you can have a lot of code cells, and then you can have a lot of charts and plots as well. Okay, so let us just create a particular chart. So I have this matplotlib open, and I'll just copy paste this particular code. Okay, so I can just copy paste this, and I'll do something like percentage matplotlib inline. So don't worry about this. This basically, so this is to plot the chart in the output. Okay, so I'll show you what difference it makes. So suppose if I don't use matplotlib inline and I used it in another cell. Okay, so if I run this, okay, so it does not display anything. Okay, it does not display anything. But when I add percentage matplot inline, so this is one example of a line magic. Okay, so a single percentage tells that a particular command is a line magic. Don't worry about what is line magic, but this is something which is really useful. So if I run this, so I need to provide this in a particular cell. Okay, and now we can go ahead and run this. Okay, so now we can get the plot which we wanted, right? So there are a lot of functionalities which we can do with Jupyter. Not only we can write and experiment our codes, we can have text, we can have charts, and these are very dynamic charts. If I want to basically change anything, so for example, I wanted to change the title, so about as simple as it can get. Okay, so this will update it, right? So yeah, it updates the title, so we can do a lot of things. So these things are very interactive and dynamic. Okay, and there are a lot of other functionalities which we can use in Jupyter. Okay, so let us just go through them one by one. So as I told you, if you wanted to create a cell below or above, so suppose I'm in command mode now, right? Blue color is highlighted here. So I'm in command mode. I cannot edit, but I can do certain tasks. Okay. So I can add a cell below. I can add a cell above. I can delete that highlighted cell as well. So how do I create a cell above? So basically you can go to insert and insert cell above. So this will create a cell above the cell which was highlighted earlier. Now the highlighted cell is the one which we have created. Okay, but there is a useful shortcut for that as well. So suppose if I wanted to add a cell above it, so I can go in command mode, basically click outside so that this blue color is highlighted, and press A. So A is short for above. So if I press A, this will create a cell above. Okay, so this is a quick keyboard shortcut and it's very useful. Suppose you want to write a lot of codes and a lot of things you want to experiment with, so you can do that. Okay, and then if I wanted to add a cell below, so I can again use the insert cell below, but there's again a quick shortcut for that. I can press B while being in command mode. So press B, so this will create a cell below. So B is short for below. So just press A or B to create a cell above or below respectively. We can also cut a particular cell. Okay, so here you can see a scissor type icon which we can use to cut a cell. Okay, so if I click on this, this will cut that particular cell. Okay, but there's also a quick shortcut for that. Then you can use X to cut this particular cell. So just press X while being in command mode. So this will cut out the highlighted cell. So now we have learned how we can add or delete a cell, right? Then there are other important functionalities as well. So here we can save the file, we can add a cell below. So already we know the shortcut to do this. Then we can cut our cell, right? We can again copy our selected cell. So basically, let's say we can do this. So yeah, and then we can paste our cells below, right? So I copied this cell and then I can paste it. Okay, then if I wanted to move this cell above, I can use this up arrow and this will move above. So because there is confusion here, so I, let's say if I wanted to move this cell above, what I can do, I can click on this and this will be moved above, right? So you can see this is above this particular markdown cell, which was earlier above this particular cell, right? Then there is, of course, you can move the cell below. If I wanted to move this below the cell which is named inline 6, so I can click on this particular cell and click on this down arrow, right? So this will move the selected cell below, right? and then of course you can run this. So the shortcut to run is you press shift plus enter. Then you can interrupt a particular line as well. So suppose there could be a scenario where you ran a code and it's taking a long time, or you wanted to basically do some edit, so you can interrupt the kernel as well. Okay, so you can interrupt the kernel from running. Okay, then you can restart the kernel as well. Then you can restart and also rerun the whole notebook. Okay, and of course we know about the code and markdown cells. Then we can open the command palette. So this is basically, this is this shortcut for doing a lot of different tasks. So we wanted to add some cells, copy some cells, right? So we can do this and do a lot of tricks and tips and tricks, right? So right, so these are a lot of useful shortcuts which you can use. And there's also you can find the keyboard shortcuts here. So suppose you wanted to insert cell below, right? So you can use B, insert cell above, you can use A. So a lot of shortcuts are available, so you can go through this, right? So this is available in the help menu. Okay, and you can read about a lot of documentation as well from here. Okay, so if I wanted to just know about matplotlib, so I can click on this and I will be moved to the matplotlib page. Okay, so there are a lot of things which you can find the help menu. So let us see what is there in file menu. So here you can create a new notebook, but because we have just only Python 3 now, so we can have other versions of Python as well. So for example, if we are currently using Python version 3, if we are using some other version, let's say version 2, so we'll get the option to create a new notebook with Python 2, right? We can open a particular notebook, we can save a particular notebook, we can do a lot of things. We can download this particular ipynb file, which is IPython notebook. Okay, so we can download this IPython notebook as a py file, as a PDF. There are a lot of other file extensions available. Okay, and then in the edit mode you can cut cells, copy cells, paste cells above and below. So you can do a lot of things. Okay, you can also merge cells above and below. Okay, then there is a view. So suppose I wanted to uh, toggle header. Okay, so now I cannot see the Jupyter and the file name. Okay, so I can basically click on this toggle header again. Now this will again appear. Okay, so we can do a lot of things. Okay, and then there is insert, which I've already covered, and there is a cell in which we can specify which cells to run. Okay, and then we can also control the type of cell which a particular cell will be. So whether it can be code or markdown, and there's also raw NB convert. Don't worry about this for now. Okay, and there is a kernel. So what is a kernel? So as I mentioned, there could be another different versions of Python which you can use. So that is what it's meant by kernel, right? So you can interrupt the kernel if you wanted to stop a code from executing, which is taking, suppose, let's say, a long time to run. So you can interrupt the kernel, you can restart the kernel. So what happens when you restart the kernel? So let's go ahead and click on this. So restart. So yeah, so if I run this again, so you can see this is again 1, starting from 1, right? So the changes will not be saved. Okay, so this is again starting from 1. So there are a lot of other functionalities. I can shut this down. So there are options as well. So this is from where we created our Jupyter notebook, right? So this is the home Jupyter environment, and there are a lot of files which we can see here. Okay, so there are a lot of different files, and then this tells us which are the notebooks which are currently running. So because this is the notebook which are currently running, so that's why this is green now. So we can either shut it down from here, or we can also shut this down. from here as well. Okay, and this is mostly it about the Jupyter Notebook. We'll be using a lot of Jupyter notebooks. Will deal with a lot of other functionalities that we can use. We just I just gave you a quick introduction to Jupyter Notebook, but in fact we can do a lot more stuff, right? So that will be covering later. So this is the basic introduction about Jupyter. Now I also want you to understand about how we can use Google Colaboratory. So Google Colaboratory is again a wonderful environment in which we can write our codes. So this is again a sort of Jupyter Notebook environment only, but that is hosted on cloud. That is on Google Cloud. So this is the Jupyter Notebook which is hosted on local host. That is your local machine, your laptop or your computer. But we can use Google Colab to run the Python codes without actually installing Python and without launching Jupyter as well. So how we can do that? So let us just quickly go through that. So we can write colab.research.google.com. So let us go here. Okay. So basically I'll cancel this and I'll open this with my another account. Okay. So I can close this up. Okay, so I have some few notebooks here. I don't care about them for now. We just want to understand what's Google Colab first. Okay, so you can see a lot of similar things here. So here there is a connect button. There's a lot of file, edit, view, insert, similar to what we encountered in Jupyter. Then there is runtime, then there are tools, then there is a help menu as well. And there is something called table of contents. So Google Colaboratory has been developed by Google to help uh, machine learning practitioners share their Jupyter notebooks. So a lot of people can simultaneously work on the Jupyter notebook together. There's a lot of other functionality as well. So we can add comments. Okay, a lot of people can access the same Jupyter notebook and see what are the changes which are being made. Okay, so this gives a lot of extra power and utility, right? Because this Jupyter notebook, this particular type of Jupyter notebook, which is your Google Colab notebook, is hosted on a cloud. So a lot of other people who have access to this particular Colab notebook, they can use this, and we can do umpteen uh, tasks on this, right? So first, let us see what we can do here. So there is an option here, so which is showing table of contents, and then there is uh, connecting to a runtime to enable file browsing. So when you open a Google Colab, so we open colab.research.google.com, and then it opened welcome to Colaboratory, right? So what it does, we need to first connect this. Okay, so now this is connected. So now we can run ourselves. So for example, this is seconds in a day. So we can do this similar, press shift plus enter to run this, and we can see, yeah, so the seconds in days 86400, right? So a lot of similar functionalities are available here, though of course there are certain differences. And Colaboratory allows you to write and execute Python in your browser without having dependency or requirement of an installed Python, right? And you can easily share your notebook with other people. Okay, so okay, so there are a lot of other functionalities which we can uh, have here. Okay, so you can add a code cell as well. So in Jupyter Notebook, we added some code cells, right? So here also we can add some code cells. We can also add some markdown, which is your text cell, right? So here you don't have options like 1, 2, but you can simply add your text. So I'll write, this is my first Google Colab notebook. Okay, so Colab is short for collaboratory. Okay, so this is my first Google Colab notebook. So we can do a lot of things here. Okay, but we want to do a lot of uh, extra stuff as well. Okay, so so we'll see how we can do those. So whenever we created a notebook, okay, so this welcome to collaboratory, where does this get saved? So we'll open our drive. Okay, so we'll open the Google Drive, using which the Google account using which we open the collaboratory. Okay, so basically we'll open the drive. Okay, so what it does, so whenever, so we can basically what we can do, save a copy in drive. Okay, so this will create a copy in my drive. So so now you can see this opens the copy which I wanted to save, and it's writing copy of welcome to collaboratory. So this copy is now saved in my drive. So what happened, so when I created when I went to file menu and I clicked on save a copy in drive, so this created a copy, and the name of that file which was created was copy of welcome to collaboratory. And then you can access this file from your drive. So where does this get saved? So whenever you're saving any Google Colab notebook, so in drive this will automatically create a folder named Colab notebooks. Okay, and this is the name of the Colab notebook which we have saved in our drive. Okay, so we can go ahead and rename this. So we can rename this from here as well. Okay, so I'll just write it welcome to collaboratory. Okay, and I'll close this one. Okay, so this takes a little bit of lag to update here, so I can reload this again. Okay, so this takes some seconds to get reflected. Okay, and we can do a lot of things. So we can now we have saved our copy, we can create a link to our cell, we can move the cell down as we were doing previously with Jupyter notebooks as well, and then we can add some comments as well. This functionality was not available in Jupyter notebook, but we have that functionality available in collaboratory, right? So we can, I can add some comment. So I'll write something like fix this bad code. Okay, so I'll comment this out. Okay, so we can add some comments as well. Okay, and basically if you want to run particular cells you can connect. Okay, and yeah, so we can do a lot of things. So when I created a notebook, so it when I go to this particular icon, right, so it gives me certain options. So I can upload to session storage. So suppose I have some data which is present in my local system and I want to upload that data, and I want to use that data, so I can upload those things. So I have the option here, right? And there's an option to mount your drive. So this is very important. So suppose you have some of your data which is saved in your Google Drive and you want to use that data and run codes based on those data, right? So you can mount to your drive as well. So how do you mount it? So simply click mount. So what it will generate, so this will generate this piece of code. Okay, so what we can do, it we can simply run this code. So how do we run this? Either click on this run button or we can press shift plus enter. So when I do shift plus enter, so it asks me, gives me a URL. So basically I'll go ahead, I'll click on this URL. Okay, so it asks me to sign up. So basically I'll use the account with which I have opened my Colab notebook. Now this suggests me to copy some code. So I'll just copy this code and I'll paste this here and I'll basically enter. Okay, so when I press enter, so what happens? It is saying that mounted at content slash drive. Okay, so my drive has already been mounted. Okay, so now you can see that earlier we were only seeing sample data, but now we can see drive as well. So from drive we can see wherever we have our data files. Okay, so we can simply click on these three dots and copy our path and use those paths in whatever the codes which we are running. So this is really useful. So we can mount our drive by simply clicking on mount drive option from here. Okay, so this is available using this icon. Okay, so every time you're opening a new session or of Colab, so you'll need to mount your drive. Okay, so again we can use a lot of code cells, create a lot of code cells, add a lot of text similar to Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so we can basically run this as well. Okay, so yeah, so this is a fancy visualization. So we can do a lot of tasks with Google Colaboratory, and it has added advantage as in we can share our notebooks. These notebooks are hosted on browser, that is on cloud, and you don't need some installed Python or any environment to run these codes, right? So I can simply, so suppose if I close this notebook, so what I can do, so I can go to this Colaboratory. Okay, so this is where in my home drive, in this particular folder named Colab Notebooks, and I can open this. Okay, so this is asking me to open with Google Colaboratory. So I'll just go ahead and open this. Okay, so basically, yeah, so yeah, we added some comments, so which is visible here. We also did some other tasks. Okay, so basically I added this text cell, which is, this is my first Google Colab notebook, which is preserved, and this is what you will be using going forward. Okay, because whenever you are submitting your assignments, or whenever you want to access our lecture materials, so all everything will be hosted in Google Colab. So essentially these files will be available somewhere in Google Drive. Okay, and you can uh, you will have access to those particular locations, and you can open your Google Colaboratory notebook using those particular locations and URLs which we'll be sharing with you. Okay, so there are a lot of other functionalities which we can explore. So you can even ask a question on Stack Overflow. So suppose there was some error which you can, it will give you a suggestion to ask a question on Stack Overflow. So suppose if I deliberately uh, do some, basically write some buggy code. Okay, so this will, right? So this says that invalid syntax, and I can also search Stack Overflow. So this is giving me some suggestion. So I can search, click on search Stack Overflow, and this will do some searching. But of course, this is not that relevant. But there would be some situations in which we'll get very useful uh, errors which we want to resolve, and we can go ahead and use the search Stack Overflow functionality, and that will be really helpful for us. Okay, and there are a lot of other options, so you can delete a particular cell as well, so you can go ahead and delete this. Okay, so yeah, so this is mostly it. That's what I wanted to cover in this introduction to Python session. So you got to know about why Python is really popular and what functionality it has. Then we went through Python installation. Then we went through some integrated development environments in which we can write and develop our Python codes. Then we specifically uh, talked about Jupyter Notebook. We did a walkthrough of Jupyter Notebook and what functionality it has. And then finally, we took a quick tour of Google Colaboratory, which is again a Jupyter Notebook, but hosted on cloud, that is on your browser. It is not hosted on your local machine, unlike the Jupyter Notebook. Okay, and Google Colab has a lot of advantages over the traditional Jupyter Notebook. We can share the collaboratory notebook with n number of people we wanted, and there are a lot of other functionalities, right? As I walked you through. So this is mostly it about this session. Okay, thanks.